Business of Data show. On this week's episode, we're going to hear from Mayze from WPP and Martin Campbell from World Vision. And I'm the Content and Community Manager here within the Business of Data team at Corinium, and it's a pleasure to have you joining us today. Driven by our global connected network, Corinium inspires data and analytics senior leaders to drive efficiency and innovation and follow proven paths to success. The Business of Data show is just one of the many formats that we showcase thought-leading insights from senior data and analytics executives. In each episode, we'll discuss the latest industry news and research and explore the hottest topics, challenges, and opportunities. And on that note, we'd love to hear from you. If you have thoughts, questions, or topics that you'd like us to cover in future episodes, please do email them over to us at bod@coriniumgroup.com. Now, with all of that said and done, let's get this show on the road. Today, we are laser focused on data, analytics, and the consumer. With customer behaviour dramatically shifting over the last year, the importance of having a 360-degree view on our customers is unparalleled. Achieving this goal requires organised and trusted data and increasingly advanced analytics and AI. This episode, we're going to ask, how have the top organisations been working to understand their customers better? What is next for consumer-focused digital transformation? And how do data teams take these ideas from theory and put them into practice? Our first guest joining me in the studio today is the lovely Mayze, who is WPP's first ever Global Director of AI and Data. Now, WPP is responsible for about 1 in 3 advertisements that you see and works with hundreds of agencies across the globe. Hi, Di, it's lovely having you joining us today. How are you doing?
I'm great, thanks, Catherine. Thanks for having me.
Brilliant. Now, Di, as I said there in your intro, you work with hundreds of agencies, all with different customer bases. How do you go about understanding all of these very different needs?
I love this question because I get to say the needs aren't that different and the use cases may be different. You know, we have creative agencies, commerce, experience, media. So we have different applications for the data. And there's a lot of data analytics that goes on in the background that maybe consumers don't see and they don't need to see. But I have a dream that actually we have, as part of WPP's data minimization strategy, that all our different agencies use the same or very similar data sets, and then they just apply their different experience on top of it. So, for example, weather data. Weather's one of the biggest drivers for retail, whether it's busy or not busy. It needs to be the right kind of rain,
Absolutely.
Not too much, not too little. But if you think about the role of weather in creative, and if we've got a dynamic creative optimization capability that suddenly you can change your images, maybe in digital out of home, to look rainy to fit with the weather for where our consumers are at. So that's just one example of how the needs are the same. Everybody needs clean data. They need it in the right place. They need access to it. So a lot of the traits and the data sets are the same.
Fantastic. Brilliant. Now, Di, in a recent study we conducted, 60% of our respondents said that they're more interested in investing in data integration technologies as a result of the past year with COVID-19. What's been your experience with data integration tech and COVID at WPP, and what does that ultimately mean for the customer?
So I laughed at this when I first saw this stat, because I thought, oh, is that high? Is that not high? If you asked me to predict. And I think the reason I thought it was high was that if there ever was a time when data wasn't giving us the answers that we needed or some direction, it was now. But I guess if you look at it a lens of how society's changed and people are working from home more, the remote working, you know, I've got people in my team all over Europe as well as my US colleagues already. So I guess with data integration, people being able to use the same data sets, if you're making recommendations on 2 different data sets, they're going to come out with 2 different recommendations. So I can believe this, but my favorite expression for how 2020's been for everybody is same storm, different boats. And I think people do just want more of everything, because we're not getting clear direction. And there was even a study by WeTransfer who interviewed or surveyed their 35,000 best customers, and 40% of the creatives said they'd actually got more creative during the pandemic. So I just wonder if everybody just wants more, because we haven't got a North Star at the moment.
Absolutely. I absolutely love that point about the same storm, different boats, because I know from conversations I've certainly had, different people's positionality in this has certainly altered how much they're running to grab things in this storm versus those who are sailing pretty smoothly by the time this episode airs. Di, as always, it's a fantastic pleasure. Thanks for joining me today.
Thank you, Catherine.
Fantastic. It's always lovely catching up with Di. She always has such an interesting story to tell. Now, my next guest is the brilliant thought leader from the charity space. Please join me in welcoming Martin Campbell, who is the Chief Information Officer for World Vision. Now, World Vision is a children's charity focused on transforming the lives of the world's most vulnerable children. Hello, Martin. Thank you so much for joining me. How are you doing?
I'm great. Thank you, Catherine. Great to be on. Great to see you again.
Fantastic. Now, Martin, in a recent study we conducted, 50% of our respondents say customers now expect more seamless and integrated digital experiences. Now, I can imagine this is really crucial for you, given that you need to be increasingly present online. How have you been using data and IT to enable this seamless experience?
Well, this year has been a huge wake-up call for the charity sector. You know, as a sector, we do rely on older, established donors a lot of the time, and we often ourselves are very established and set in our ways as organizations. We found it difficult to change, and you know, I guess I've been saying for a while that the writing's on the wall. Well, this year the charity sector very much hit the wall when it came to digital. Digital had sort of become established as one of the larger channels for new acquisition, if you like, of supporters in the sector. But actually what happened this year was that all the other channels shut down. And so we became really focused on that. And I guess at a time of very, very great change, we have had to look closely at data to say, what's going on? We don't understand what's happening. You know, there's so much uncertainty. What can we tell? What certainty do we have? And you know, I think that's really the starting place that we've come from, is having been on the back foot as a sector, definitely, and my organisation certainly shared in that. I guess, you know, one of the particular challenges we have as the charity sector is that we've seen that in rapidly changing environments, companies that put the customer first and are able to really think about the customer experience have been the ones that have succeeded, and they've been able to really transform themselves. With the charity sector, we have a particular challenge that we have two groups of customers. We have our service recipients, which for us in World Vision is children normally outside of the UK, you know, children in places, in the world's most vulnerable places, the world's most challenging environments. And then we have another group of what you might call customers, which is our supporters. And so when it comes to us as an organisation and all charities, putting ourselves in a place of saying, well, put the customer first. Well, who is the customer? We've actually got to split ourselves two ways and say we've got to organise around our service recipients, and we've also got to completely rethink our supporter experience, because the bar just got raised. And it wasn't, you know, at the beginning of the year, it wasn't a problem if your digital experience was a little bit behind the times as a charity, because people expected you to be sending the money to the cause that people have donated for.
Absolutely.
But now we just rely on that. We just have that expectation. And so I think our charity, like many, is really accelerating our efforts to understand data, to retool ourselves, restructure ourselves. But it's a big job. It's a really challenging job for everyone, I think.
Absolutely. And I know from previous conversations that you and I have had over on the podcast, the charity sector has got to go careful with innovations as well, because as you say, donors' money has got to be put in the right places. But as you say, with these changing expectations for digital, it does make you wonder how much you have to be careful and keep up with those expectations as well. So how do you balance that?
Well, I think if the one thing that this year has done is demonstrated that now is the time. You know, in previous years, we've been saying, well, it's all very well to talk about going into new digital areas, but the majority of our funds still come from traditional areas, from direct mail, from telephone, from face-to-face engagements. That's actually where we have our first contact with customers, with supporters, as we would say. And I think the thing that's really changed this year is that we've had a sneak preview, and I guess we're hoping that we'll get a little bit more time as things return somewhat to a normal experience, but we still can see that the trend is continuing in that way. So, it's time for us really now to say, well, last year it might have been seen as risky to invest substantially in data and by investing in data, what we're really doing is investing in tomorrow's supporters as opposed to concentrating our funds with today's supporters, which is a different group. And I guess where we've got to this year is to say, well, it's not really risky to do that. It's now risky not to do that. But it does still leave us with that real challenge that, the expectations and the experience that we have to deliver to those two different groups of supporters is sometimes quite different. And so we have to sort of shift but still retain our contact with our existing supporters. And of course, that's then going to drive a lot of transformation within our own organizations. I guess it's like trying to sort of operate a pret-a-manger within a McDonald's. You're like, they're both fast food joints, but they kind of serve different audiences for different things. And we try and in the charity sector in particular, as with many sectors, we're now struggling with we've got to be able to do both of these things and do them both really well. And so, data and IT is going to play an absolutely huge part in the success of that moving forwards.
And I think especially now the charity sector is going to be such an interesting one to watch over the next year, because as we expect, there could be this new hybrid model where, donors now expect to be able to do both, see you in the shopping mall, but also online as well, or perhaps they'll want to go back to traditional methods. It's going to be a really interesting time, and I look forward to catching up with you very soon to see how it goes from here. Martin, as always, huge pleasure. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
There we go. 30 minutes sure does go quick. What I really found of interest from that episode was Di's fantastic soundbite. We're all in the same storm, but perhaps we're in different boats. And of course, Martin's extra layer of the industrial challenge for being in the charity sector and managing that ethical balance for innovation, but also staying with the times. Thank you again to both of our guests for their fantastic contributions. Next time, we'll be talking all about creating high-performance data and analytics teams. Just as we've done this time, we'll be joined by expert thought leaders to help us deep dive into the challenges and opportunities. Now, do be sure to subscribe to the Business of Data YouTube channel, follow our page on LinkedIn, and of course, come and visit us over at the Business of Data platform for more great content, insights, and connections. As always, stay safe, stay well, and we'll see you next time.